Chapter 1 of Robinson Crusoe opens with the title character, Robinson Crusoe, telling the story of his family's history. Now, he's from York, England, and his father was a merchant who emigrated from Germany and married his mother in York. Crusoe has two older brothers. The first was a soldier killed in battle. The second has lost contact with the family. Crusoe's father advises him to remain where it's comfortable, but Crusoe has a desire to travel, and he boards a ship bound for London at age 19. The seas are rough. Crusoe suffers from seasickness, and he vows to return to York if he survives the trip. He forgets this repentance quickly once the seas become calm, but a second storm sinks the ship near the port of Yarmouth. Crusoe and the ship's crew are lucky to escape with their lives. The captain pronounces Crusoe a jinx and urges him to go home. Crusoe proceeds to London to look for another voyage. In this first chapter, Crusoe's father cautions him to be satisfied with his current state in life. This sows the seeds of guilt that will haunt Robinson Crusoe for the rest of the book. Crusoe clearly does not want an easy and comfortable life. He wants to make his own way in the world and pursue adventure. When Crusoe makes a seemingly impulsive decision to board a ship for his first voyage with no luggage and only the money in his pocket, he swears he'll return home when things are going rough. But when he gets over those hardships, he's right back into the adventure. He sees the hardships as a punishment from God. When conditions improve, he forgets all about the repentance he made earlier on. When he arrives safely in Yarmouth, he refuses to return home because he is ashamed. His all-consuming desire to wander and the fear of facing his family lead him to London. The captain of the recently sunken ship tells Crusoe that if you do not go back, you will meet with nothing but disasters and disappointments. We know that the first part of that is coming soon. This prediction foreshadows the adventure ahead for Crusoe, and his looking backward to childhood reveals that his father's words are prophetic. In Chapter 2 of Robinson Crusoe, Robinson sets out from London on a trip to Africa. The ship's captain likes his company, so he doesn't charge Crusoe for the voyage. And Crusoe is able to make money from this trip and become a merchant trader upon his return. However, the captain dies shortly after their return, and Crusoe befriends his widow, who keeps Crusoe's money safe when he sets out to voyage. The second voyage Crusoe goes on to Africa is catastrophic. The ship is raided by pirates, and the crew is sold into slavery. The pirate's captain, a Moor, keeps Crusoe as his personal slave. For 2 years, Crusoe watches his house while he is at sea and his ship while he is in the port. The pirate takes Crusoe and 2 other servants with him when he fishes. The pirate entertains guests in his home, and he sends Crusoe and other slaves to fish. The other 2 slaves are named Ismail and a boy, Zuri. Crusoe decides to escape by pushing Ismail overboard and taking Zuri into his own service. The 2 of them sail south along the African coast, and when they come to land for fresh water, they encounter a lion, and Crusoe orders Zuri to go on shore and kill the creature, and keeps the skin for a blanket. In Chapter 2, Robinson Crusoe sets off to sea in pursuit of freedom, and it's ironic that he's captured by pirates and forced into slavery. He misses the sheer mobility that sailing on a ship provides. He hopes that the pirates will take him on voyages, but he is frustrated with being landlocked. He is allowed a great deal of liberty for a slave. Crusoe does not consider escaping over land. He lacks assistance, or it's a less practical possibility than actually seeking freedom by sea. When Crusoe finally does escape, he immediately obtains a servant of his own, Zuri. Crusoe demands that the boy swear his loyalty to him. Even though he makes promises to make Zuri a great man someday, the relationship is never really equal, and Crusoe treats Zuri as an inferior. They encounter a lion, and Crusoe orders Zuri to go on shore and kill the creature, willing to sacrifice the boy's life instead of risking his own. In Chapter 3 of Robinson Crusoe, Robinson and Zuri continue down the African coast. A month into their journey, they come upon some native Africans, and the native Africans replenish their food and water supplies. They have nothing to repay their kindness with. At that moment, a leopard chases its prey past them onto the shore. Crusoe chases the animal and shoots the leopard. The native Africans take the meat and give Crusoe its skin. Crusoe directs the boat toward Cape Verde, and Zuri spots a Portuguese vessel. The captain takes Crusoe and Zuri on board and agrees to take them to Brazil. Once in Brazil, the captain refuses to accept payment for his service. The captain buys Crusoe's longboat supplies and animal skins, and then asks to buy Zuri. This causes Crusoe some distress because the boy has been so loyal. But Crusoe agrees, and the captain promises to free Zuri in 10 years if the boy becomes a Christian. In Brazil, Crusoe lives with the owner of a sugar plantation, and he learns the business. He decides to set up a plantation of his own with what money he has. It is hard labor, and he's mostly there on his own. Crusoe makes arrangements with the Portuguese captain to bring his money from England, and after 4 years, he decides to join a voyage to Guinea to buy slaves for his plantation. He puts his affairs in order and sets out. 12 days in, the ship runs into a storm and is forced to change course. After another storm, the ship runs aground in the Caribbean, and the entire crew is lost. Crusoe alone survives to make it to a nearby island. Crusoe and Zuri encounter the native Africans, and there's mutual fear and distrust in the other. Crusoe asserts his power over animals, and he does not do this with the native Africans. They understand the basic value of offering hospitality to strangers. Crusoe feels bad he has nothing to offer, but he accepts their generosity anyway. The tension between the parties does not break until Crusoe shoots the leopard. Shooting the leopard allows Crusoe to repay their kindness. Now, the Portuguese captain transporting Crusoe and Zuri to Brazil for free and his concern for Crusoe's fortunes show that he is a good man. But he wants to buy Zuri from Crusoe. Crusoe and Zuri were both slaves, but only Crusoe is presumed free because he's white. Crusoe hesitates to sell Zuri because Zuri has been loyal and devoted, even a friend. Crusoe does seek the boy's blessing on the exchange. The forced conversation reads as an imposition of European will on Zuri. They were doing Zuri a favor by saving his soul. Crusoe's stories about his experiences in Africa, especially the ease of trading trifles for slaves, inspire a group of Brazilian plantation owners to make the same journey. In Chapter 4 of Robinson Crusoe, it's the morning after the big storm that has shipwrecked the main character, and he investigates the damage. He sees the wreck about a mile from shore. The crew might have survived if they had remained on the ship. At low tide, he's able to swim to the remains of the ship and climb aboard from a rope. Most of the provisions are still dry. He moves the supplies to the island on a raft that he builds. He takes food, tools, guns, and ammunition. In his first 13 days on the island, he makes a total of 11 trips to and from the wreckage of the ship. He takes more tools, nails, clothing, a hatchet, a grindstone, sails and rigging, a hammock, cables, and money, and many other items. And he also brings ashore a dog and 2 cats who survived. Surveying his new surroundings, he verifies that it is an island, and it seems uninhabited except for birds. He's seen no wild animals, but he uses the crates as barricades at night for his new home anyway. He discovers a herd of wild goats. He settles on a spot by a hillside with a view of the sea, just in case a rescue ship arrives. He sets up a tent by the hollow in the hill. He builds a fence, strong and sturdy, around the perimeter. He begins digging in the cave to make a proper dwelling, and he sets up a post to track the passage of time. He starts a journal and even builds a table and chair. One of the first things taken from the ship, aside from the food, are guns and ammunition. Robinson feels threatened on the island and wants protection, and the guns represent his ability to control the environment and assert power. The items he gets from the ship represent a connection to civilization as he knows it. The clothing and grooming supplies are important to maintain a sense of his own identity, and a desire not to be naked and bearded, to maintain some standards of living. He starts a journal and continues to read and write in order to maintain his sense of humanity. And he brings money back, although it is useless to him on the island, but it represents his hope. He begins building, first a simple fort out of crates, then a more fortified construction around a small cave. He begins changing the shape of the island by digging to enlarge the cave, and he decides to track the days he spends on the island, marking the passage of time. Research has shown humans deprived of the ability to track time suffer psychological damage. Crusoe's desire to make a calendar speaks to a deep human instinct. In Chapter 5 of Robinson Crusoe, Robinson recounts in his journal his early days on the island. On September 30th, 1659, he landed, and he describes the trips he makes to the wreck and building his new settlement. He goes on daily hunting trips with his gun and his dog, and he enlarges the cave on the hillside and builds a table. He makes tools that he doesn't already have: a shovel, a wheelbarrow, a sled. He shores up the cave. He does construction where he creates wooden posts and makes an even better fence. He spends a lot of time fortifying his wall. He nurses a lame goat back to health and considers domesticating some food sources. He finds a few stalks of rice and barley growing from seeds that he discarded. He keeps the grains that grow so he may plant more the following season. In April of his first year, the island is hit by an earthquake and a hurricane. He considers building a new habitation, but he lacks wood and his tools are getting dull. He figures out a way to turn a grindstone with his feet while he holds blades for sharpening. He continues to live in the cave. The hurricane washes the remains of the ship closer to shore. Crusoe is able to salvage a little more gunpowder and dismantle the wood from the wreck. Providence and nature figure heavily in this chapter. Robinson Crusoe sees every event as a form of reward or punishment. The emergence of the barley and rice stalks is a miracle and a blessing from God to him. The storm that enables him to recover the last of the ship at the precise time he needs it is even further evidence. Crusoe's best assets at this point are his self-reliance and his inventiveness. His decision to reinforce his cave with wooden beams ends up really paying off. He also makes his own tools, even if they don't function exactly as he means them to. His solution with the grindstone so the dull tools can be sharpened is ingenious, and he even devises a pulley system that allows him to turn the stone with his feet. His ingenuity and ability to work with what he has makes this valuable in the long term and shows his survival skills. He begins to think about how he might domesticate animals on the island, and the ability to plan ahead and innovate represent his best defense against the whims of nature. Crusoe's pride in his machines also match the rising cultural interest in new inventions and mechanization in the 18th century in Britain. This would eventually lead to the Industrial Revolution and change the world. In Chapter 6 of Robinson Crusoe, Robinson works for almost 6 weeks at dismantling the wrecked ship. He fishes with little success, but he further expands his food supplies when he catches and cooks a sea turtle. When summer comes in this first year, chilly rains fall and Crusoe becomes very ill. He lays in bed and is haunted by a terrible dream. A man descends from the sky and threatens to kill him for his lack of repentance. After this dream, Crusoe takes stock of his life and realizes that he's been wicked. He disobeyed his father's advice, and he showed no gratitude for the good fortunes that have befallen him. He sees his time as a slave and his misfortunes on the island as punishment for his sins, and he resolves to change his ways as he recovers from the illness. He reads one of the Bibles that he salvaged. Focusing on a verse that promises God will deliver those who ask for help, he focuses more on the deliverance of his own soul than God physically coming down to rescue him. As a result, he begins to find his living situation much more tolerable. For a man who seeks adventure, being forced into the isolation of the island is real punishment. Robinson Crusoe believes his disobedience makes him the wickedest of sailors. His life has been marked by escalating catastrophes: the shipwreck at Yarmouth, the capture by pirates, his slavery, and now this shipwreck. Each of these bids to provoke repentance. Crusoe met with non-existent gratitude. After his illness subsides, Crusoe realizes the error of his ways. Now, he may be overstating his wickedness, though. Based on his own reckoning, his worst act has been to disobey his parents. This is not a great sin by Christian standards. He hasn't killed anyone. He provides no accounts of womanizing or adultery. Although his shipwreck occurred upon a journey to obtain slaves, slavery itself was not widely considered a sinful practice at the time. Crusoe's repentance rests on a very Protestant belief that his lack of faith and gratitude toward God are the source of his wickedness. He develops a regular religious practice and grows in his faith. Crusoe becomes more comfortable with his surroundings on the island because of this. Protestant notions of repentance through prayer and good works contrast with traditional Catholic beliefs in absolution from sin through confession. In Chapter 7 of Robinson Crusoe, Robinson searches the island and he finds more fresh water, tobacco plants, cocoa trees, and wild sugarcane. He also discovers a valley with citrus fruits and grapes. He gathers some grapes, but must go back for bags to carry them, and when he returns, he finds that animals have eaten and trod on them. He sets up branches so the grapes can cure in the sun. He considers moving his home into this valley, but it has no view of the sea. He sets up a second home there instead. There, he constructs a tent and fence, and he calls this his bower. He reflects. He is king and lord of everything he surveys. The rainy season begins in August. Crusoe is confined to his cave, and he teaches himself to weave baskets to store food. He observes the first anniversary of his landing, and using the day for thanksgiving and prayer. In October, the end of the rainy season, he sows 2/3 of his grain, but nothing grows. He tries again a few months later, and there's success. In this chapter, Robinson Crusoe is transitioning from a hunting, gathering way of life toward agriculture. He plants his first rice and barley crops and eventually has some successes as a farmer. Foresight and persistence work in his favor, and he continues to develop new skills. This exemplifies the Protestant belief in work as a virtue. Robinson Crusoe is seldom idle, continuing to enlarge his cave and building more furniture. He resolves to stay indoors during the rainy season so he doesn't get sick again. He uses this time to teach himself a new skill, and his self-reliance has given him the means to survive and create comfort. He has not forgotten the other lessons from his sickness. Unlike his previous attempts at repentance, this time the lesson has taken root. Crusoe observes a weekly Sabbath, and he reserves the anniversary of his landing for more reflection and prayer. Bible reading and prayer also make up an important part of his daily routine and his new identity. In Chapter 8 of Robinson Crusoe, Robinson continues exploring the island, and he discovers some land a distance away. He makes no plans to try to get there. He assumes it is held by natives. He captures a parrot and names him Pole, and he teaches the bird to speak. His dog catches a young goat. He takes it to his bower and places it in an enclosure. He returns to his cave for a week. He comes back for the goat, and it is nearly starved, but hunger has made it tame. Crusoe feeds it, and the goat becomes his companion as well. He observes the second anniversary of his landing. He has established a daily routine, and his crops are doing well. The harvest yields a few bushels, not enough to eat, but enough to plant more. He begins to plan how he will mill the grain once he has a larger crop in the coming year. He reflects on how to make his own bread. He has furniture and cutlery and other tools. When he gives thanks on his anniversary day, he is very comfortable and living well. The isolation does appear to be taking its toll on him, however. He repeatedly talks about his lack of company and assistance. He looks to expand his planting, and his accumulation of pets is an ongoing desire for companionship. He plans to tame the kid so he can start a domesticated goat herd, but he becomes attached to it as a pet. When he catches a parrot, it's for the purpose of teaching it to talk. He clearly craves a voice that speaks words. Crusoe makes no immediate plans to travel to the land he has spotted in the distance. This hesitation indicates a change in Crusoe's attitude. He fears falling into the hands of cannibals. This is a greater degree of caution than he has displayed in the past. When he first took to sea, he expressed no fear of pirates. For the first time, he seems to recognize that there may not be a better place than where he is right here. In Chapter 9 of Robinson Crusoe, Robinson plants his next round of grain crops and learns to make pottery. The results are ugly, but functional, and he devises a way to cure the pots in his campfire. He makes a mortar and pestle out of hard wood for milling the grain, and he uses fabric from the ship to make sieves for the ground meal. His supply of biscuits from the ship is running low. He also has to make new clothes after 4 years on the island, and from his skins, he makes himself a new waistcoat and loose pants and a hat and an umbrella. He admits he looks a little silly. The land he sighted occupies his thoughts. He might run into cannibals, or maybe he could be rescued. He's unable to salvage the lifeboat from the ship, and he builds a canoe out of a giant tree. It takes him months to finish, and then he discovers he's unable to move it. All his labor has been wasted. Now in this chapter, Robinson Crusoe's self-reliance emerges in his endeavor to bake his own bread. He expresses great pride in his ability to do this, and he explains the process in depth. This labor has given him a new appreciation for what he has, and he preaches the virtues of simplicity and having no more than one can use. This message is one that has been taken up by writers over the centuries and may contribute to Robinson Crusoe's enduring popularity. He applies his ingenuity to the task of replacing worn-out clothing. Clothing provides protection, but also reminds Crusoe of his identity as a civilized man. The umbrella is a similar item of civilization, and it's stereotypically English. The umbrella serves a practical purpose of protecting against rain and sun, but it also has psychological worth, connecting Crusoe to the world he left behind. Crusoe learns an important lesson about forethought in his failure with the canoe. The canoe he builds is big and heavy, and he never has a good plan to get it into the water. It's only after he's put in the effort that he understands his work has been wasted. It's important to only have as much as he can use, but to know how he will use what he makes. He reflects on the uselessness of his drawer full of money and on the knowledge that any food he cannot consume will simply go to waste. The failure of the canoe is particularly difficult for him, not only because it puts on hold any long-term plans for escape, but it also takes away the potential for freedom and diversion that the boat represents in its building. In Chapter 10 of Robinson Crusoe, time passes, and it's now been 5 years on the island. Robinson builds a new canoe in a canal to push it into the water, but he gets caught between currents, and he gets brought back to the shore. He wakes up to a voice. "Poor Robin Crusoe, where have you been? Where have you been?" It's the voice of Pole the parrot. The experience deters him from making more explorations by water. Then it's the 11th year on the island. Robinson plans to domesticate goats and traps 3 kids in a pit. After a year, 3 have multiplied to a dozen, and after 2, there are 43. The flock provides meat and milk, and Robinson plans to make butter and cheese. Robinson Crusoe still has moments of weakness and doubt. He's built a new, smaller canoe, but has no plans to use this boat to escape. Even sailing short distances gives Crusoe a sense of freedom, and building the boat reveals that Crusoe continues to yearn for adventure and discovery. But Providence has other plans and scares him after his close call with the currents. It seems as if the entire incident took place to remind Crusoe to be grateful for what he has. The parrot's words to Crusoe reveal much about his state of mind on the island. He writes that he is mostly content, but the parrot's words indicate that he's lonely and longs for companionship. In Chapter 11 of Robinson Crusoe, Robinson maintains his primary home at the cave, his castle, and his bower, his country seat. He also has his habitat for the goats and fields for his grain. Sometimes he takes short sails in his canoe. One day, he discovers a footprint in the sand. He considers the possible sources for the print, including the devil. He briefly tries to convince himself the footprint is his own, but this proves impossible. He decides the source is more likely human, a native from the mainland. He fears they may have discovered his settlements, his boat, or evidence of his existence, and he also fears that they may come for him. Overcome by fear, Crusoe considers destroying everything. He calms down, and common sense prevails. In 15 years on the island, he has not encountered another human being. He concludes that these visitors don't come often or stay long. Instead of destroying, he devotes his energies to fortifying his settlements, concealing their presence, building another wall. When Robinson Crusoe discovers the footprint, the fear is all-consuming. He obsesses over the footprint's origin, and he believes that the footprint may have been made by the devil. This theory is more comforting than the obvious reality that it's from another person. Crusoe believes in God, and believes God will protect him. As terrifying as the devil might be, it seems more favorable to Crusoe than the alternatives. He theorizes he made the footprint himself, but he cannot convince himself of this. Crusoe desperately wants human contact, but he is aware that he is much safer without it. He hides indoors for long stretches of time, meditating on the situation, trusting God to protect him. He acknowledges that if he is harmed, it is God's will. Even as he surrenders any sense of free will, he is haunted by this looming threat. He acknowledges that the fear is potentially more destructive than the actual threat itself, and he contemplates destroying his tiny empire in order to remain safe from these unknown invaders. In Chapter 12 of Robinson Crusoe, Robinson is anxious the natives might discover him in his settlements. Robinson divides up his goat herd and distributes groups all throughout the island. If one herd is found, he might lose part, but not all. And he builds one enclosure for young goats. He comes to a part of the island that he had never visited. He makes a horrible discovery. He sees the shore spread with human skulls, hands, feet, and other human bones. He finds a fire pit. The natives are cannibals. They come often to this part of his small island. Horrified and unnerved, Crusoe acts more to conceal himself than ever. He makes excursions to the natives' beach. He never sees anyone, or even a canoe. The cannibals are close by, and that occupies much of Crusoe's thoughts. He decides to wipe out their wicked ways. He keeps watch from a hill and prepares traps, and after some time, he realizes it is not his place to judge these people. They don't understand what they're doing. They don't know that it's wrong. They have done no harm to him, so wouldn't it be wrong of him to do harm to them? Judgment and punishment are for God to perform, not Robinson Crusoe. He wonders if an attack would be impractical. The natives could outnumber and overpower him. He continues to focus on preparing his defense and concealing himself. One day he finds a cave tucked away in a remote place, and he realizes it is the perfect hideout if one should be needed. He takes a large stack of guns and ammunition where they'll be safe from discovery. Robinson Crusoe had not seen proof before that the natives are cannibals. He made this assumption based on hearsay from his time in England and Brazil. Now he has proof that his fears were justified, so he plans to eliminate the natives. This plan reflects colonialism, in which natives were often killed by Europeans. His doubts about not being able to overpower them is not entirely based in Christian morality. Such morality plays a part because a good person should hesitate to murder anyone. Even though he's heavily armed, he doesn't want to engage in a fight he isn't sure he can win. Crusoe's unusual position impacts both his logic and his actions. Letting God be more the judge is more a cover for his reluctance to make war on a large number of people. In chapter 13 of Robinson Crusoe, it's been 23 years on the island. Robinson Crusoe has more parrots and other birds, a few cats, and some pet goats. The dog died after 16 years, though. But these other animals provide some company. He still misses human companionship. He continues to live in fear and dread of the mysterious natives. He does not interact with the natives, but he does spot a group of them on the shore, and this causes him great alarm. They leave, and he finds in their wake human remains in the ashes of their fire. He does not see the natives for a long time, but he worries about them daily. In May, he spots a Spanish ship in distress, and on it, he finds no survivors except for a dog. The ship's wreckage yields gunpowder, a copper pot and brass kettles, chests containing shirts, bottles of cordials, and a large quantity of money. He gets some shoes from two of the sailors who drowned. In this chapter, Robinson Crusoe is reminded what the natives do on his island. They really are cannibals, and even though he's grown and his attitude has matured, he still considers an attack against them. His plans are primarily driven by fear. Once he is attacked, they will know about him, and they may return in greater numbers. He feels unprepared for such a counterattack. Now, the Spanish ship on the island provides Crusoe some relief by creating a distraction from all his worry about the natives. He realizes two ships have now crashed, and he is the sole survivor, in a way, of both wrecks. It reaffirms his faith that God is taking care of him. He ignores, however, that God was not taking care of the sailors who died. He counts and adds to his money pile, even though he has little use for it. Crusoe's inability to leave behind the values with which he was raised is highly symbolic. First of all, it represents a continuing hope that he will someday be rescued. But on top of that, it symbolizes the vestiges of his life he's left behind, even though he's been without human companionship for over 2 decades. In chapter 14 of Robinson Crusoe, 2 more years have gone by on the island. Robinson Crusoe begins to think seriously about escape, and he considers how much danger the natives pose for him. He was in no less danger before he learned of their existence, and he was happier not knowing about them. His best chance is to capture one of the natives and make him into an assistant to guide in his escape. A year and a half goes by, and the natives do come to shore with 2 captives. They kill one captive right away, but the other captive makes a run for it. Robinson Crusoe shoots one of the natives, and he gives the escaped captive a sword to kill the other native. Crusoe takes the escaped captive as a servant and names him Friday after the day that he saved his life. He teaches Friday English, clothes him, and dissuades him from cannibalism, promising to kill Friday if he suggests it. Crusoe spends his time fortifying his dwelling in case Friday turns against him. But Friday becomes a faithful companion and servant to Robinson Crusoe. Robinson Crusoe thinks of escaping the island. It's been almost 25 years since he first crashed there. He begins to change his attitude toward the natives, thinking of them as property. Making one of the natives his slave reflects how non-Europeans are less human in Robinson Crusoe's eyes. Friday is brought to the island as a captive, and Friday's escape from his captors features far more dramatic action than what's happened all throughout the book so far. Crusoe is heroic in his assistance. He does not directly intervene until after Friday has run from his captors. Crusoe is still exercising caution toward the natives. He remains reluctant to make the first strike. Even after the two become friendly, young Friday defers to Crusoe completely. Crusoe begins to teach Friday how to speak English and dresses him in different clothes. Crusoe's dominance of Friday is his reward for rescuing him, but also, he believes, his right. Crusoe thinks of Friday as his property. Teaching Friday to call him master is one of his top priorities. He tames Friday like he tamed his goats to inspire his loyalty. In chapter 15 of Robinson Crusoe, Robinson teaches Friday passable English and shows him all the trades on the island so he can assist him with all his chores. Crusoe now has to produce food for 2 people instead of just 1. He quells Friday's lingering desires for cannibalism by introducing him to goat meat. Friday swears never to eat human flesh again. He doesn't give Friday a gun, but Robinson explains what it is. And he does supply Friday with a knife and a hatchet for work and defense. Crusoe introduces Friday to Christianity. They talk about God and the devil. Friday asks why God doesn't just kill the devil. Crusoe is stumped for a while. He explains that killing the devil isn't part of God's plan. They share their past histories, and Crusoe tells of how he ended up on the island. Friday explains how he was captured. Friday says his tribe is very strong and lives on the mainland. He has seen a ship like the ones Crusoe describes. One arrived in his country with 17 white men who were allowed to settle. Friday expresses a desire to visit his homeland again. He would teach his tribe about Christianity and eat cattle instead of human beings. They begin planning how the two can get to the mainland. In this chapter, Robinson Crusoe speaks of Friday's accomplishments with a tone of amazement. Friday's questions and comments reveal clear intelligence beyond Crusoe's estimation. Friday comes from a civilization that has very different values from those of the Europeans. Friday's nation practices cannibalism in a ceremonial way, and Friday reveals the depth and freedom of his thought process, asking why God does not kill the devil. Crusoe is stumped by this inquiry, and he discovers he is learning more about his own faith. Crusoe's solitude and the twist of fate that's happened here have led him to think deeply about his own religious beliefs. Friday reveals more of his own civilization when he tells Crusoe about the Spanish sailors. While Crusoe might have expected Friday's tribe to simply eat and kill those survivors, instead, the tribe takes in the Spaniards and helps them settle alongside their own. Friday explains that the tribe's cannibalism is not indiscriminate. The tribe only eats men who are captured in battle. There are rules governing who is and is not fair game to eat, which adds an element of order. It is clear that the tribe feels no need to victimize the survivors of a terrible shipwreck, instead offering what hospitality they can to those men in need. In chapter 16 of Robinson Crusoe, Robinson and Friday build a new boat. The boat has a sail and a rudder, so Crusoe teaches Friday all about sailing and navigation. The two continue farming and gather food in preparation for their voyage. 6 canoes, 21 natives, and 3 captives arrive on their island. Friday and Crusoe prepare to meet them. Crusoe feels confident their firepower can overcome the natives. Crusoe has second thoughts as they have done no harm, and he's not sure if he wants to attack. But these second thoughts end when he sees one of the captives is a white man. Crusoe and Friday attack, and kill 17 of the natives and rescue the man. He is a Spanish survivor of the shipwreck. They find a second captive, a man tied up in one of the canoes. Friday greets him warmly, and it turns out this man is his father. The new arrivals are brought to the castle, fed, and their injuries tended to. Friday's father speculates that the natives who escaped probably died or will stay away. Because of the guns, they think Crusoe must be a vengeful spirit or god. Friday does not want to return to the mainland and his tribe without Robinson Crusoe. His devotion to Crusoe is total. They prepare to face the natives in battle. Friday tells Crusoe he will die when his master bids him to die. Crusoe takes this devotion as a justification to keep Friday as a slave. The natives arrive on the island with a new set of captives, and Crusoe sticks to his old strategy of watching and waiting in caution. He has qualms about killing people who are not directly attacking him, but he changes his mind when he notices one of the captives is a white European. He has been content to sit by and let the natives attack, kill, and eat each other, but now that he sees a fellow European in danger, he takes an active role in his rescue. This increase in the population of the island enhances Crusoe's feeling of dominion. All three of his subjects owe him their lives. He considers himself justified in being Lord and lawgiver. In chapter 17 of Robinson Crusoe, Crusoe talks to the Spaniard about his ideas for escaping, and he decides the Spaniard is trustworthy. The two make plans to bring the other Spaniards to the island. Once the Spaniards reach it, they can build a large boat to escape. The men begin preparations. Crusoe sends the Spaniard and Friday's father back to retrieve the other Spaniards. 8 days after they depart, an English ship appears near the island. Crusoe is more cautious than happy about this development. A landing party comes on shore with 3 prisoners. The English sailors strike one prisoner with a cutlass. Crusoe feels sympathy for the captives. The captives remain on the shore while the others explore the island. Crusoe prepares for battle in case he and Friday are discovered. Then he goes to talk to the captives. One of the captives, it turns out, is the ship's captain, now the victim of a mutiny. Crusoe agrees to help as long as he agrees to take them to England if they retake the ship. Crusoe, Friday, the captain, his mate, and a passenger capture the landing party and their boat. Now in this chapter, by collaborating with the Spaniard, Crusoe sees his best chance of escaping. He hesitates to get involved with the Spaniards, but the mainland is short of supplies, and Crusoe has saved the Spaniard's life, so their gratitude and loyalty would be a reasonable expectation. Crusoe observes that gratitude is not in human nature. It took many lessons to teach Crusoe to be grateful for his own blessings. The experience with Friday has conditioned Crusoe to expect devotion as his due. The English ship arrives. It is crewed by men engaged in mutiny against their captain. The English sailors fare no better in terms of presenting a positive image of civilized society. The description of their arrival on the island shores even mirrors the arrival of the cannibals. They come in a boat with 3 prisoners. The sailors don't cook or eat anyone, and their violence is not a product of agreed-upon rituals. But these sailors are arguably less civilized than the cannibals because they're attacking and betraying the ship's captain, to whom they swore an oath of loyalty. In chapter 18 of Robinson Crusoe, when the first party doesn't return from the island, the mutineers aboard the English ship send out a second party. The English captain worries about the second group, but Robinson Crusoe assures the captain that he can save his life. Crusoe, Friday, and the others capture the second party and their boat. The captain sorts out who is loyal to him, and he turns over the others to the mercy of the island's governor, Crusoe. The loyal sailors and the captain move to retake their ship. Crusoe and Friday remain behind to guard the prisoners. The captain and his men are successful. The captain returns to the island with a bounty of gifts for Crusoe. They leave behind some of the prisoners, and Crusoe is finally free of the island. In this chapter, Crusoe makes it clear he sees the mutineers not only as sailors who have betrayed their captain, but also as invaders into his own domain. This is reinforced when the captain declares Crusoe the governor of the island. The prisoners are given a choice whether to stay on the island or return to England for trial. Crusoe does not see the island as punishment for them. Leaving the prisoners behind gives Crusoe the opportunity to create a kind of legacy for himself.
The infrastructure and civilization he has created on the island will carry on.
And Crusoe expects the Spaniard to return with the rest of his own crew, which will make the island something like a true colony. In chapter 19 of Robinson Crusoe, Crusoe sails back to England, and he arrives on June 11th, 1687, 35 years after he first left the country. Not only does he have money that he took from the 2 wrecked ships, but he has money that he left with the widow of his first captain. His father and most of his family have died. He decides to go to Lisbon and check on his plantation in Brazil. In Lisbon, he locates the Portuguese captain. The captain had saved him years ago and has knowledge of Crusoe's business. Crusoe discovers the plantation is doing very well. After some paperwork, he comes into a healthy fortune, and he rewards both the captain and the widow for their loyalty and assistance. With his fortunes in order, Crusoe returns to London. Traveling over land from Lisbon, he fears another sea voyage. His fears are justified when he learns the ships from his return trip have met with disaster. The land journey is not easy, though. Crusoe's party is waylaid in the mountains by heavy snow. Finding another guide through the mountains and confronting a pack of hungry wolves, Friday ends up killing one of them and scares the others away. Robinson Crusoe returns to England, but it seems he must endure one final test. He finds himself with very few family members left, and the ones that are alive are virtual strangers. He has no fortune to establish himself in society. In Lisbon, he discovers that his plantation in Brazil has thrived. He feels all his sufferings have been rewarded amply. He also has better instincts with regard to travel now that he has returned. He has a bad feeling about returning to England by boat, and he has learned to trust his instincts. Friday's adjustment to life in Europe appears to be somewhat mixed. He is amazed, but also terrified by snow. Friday seems to thrive in situations that involve some wilderness and danger. He leaps to his master's defense when they meet their first pack of wolves. The incident may be included to show how Friday's savage nature finds an outlet in this new civilization. The snow may be unfamiliar to him, but Friday does not feel cowed by his new environment. The fact that Crusoe gives away so much of his fortune to those who have helped him shows that the lessons he learned on the island have changed him. Chapter 20 is the final chapter of Robinson Crusoe. In it, the traveling party continues overland. They encounter a bear in the mountains. Friday is eager to attack and kill. He has killed bears back at his homeland. The group also fights off another pack of wolves. Their guide is wounded, and they hire a new one. Robinson Crusoe and Friday return to England without further incident. Crusoe considers moving back to his plantation in Brazil. He decides instead to sell the plantation, which gives him great wealth. Still, Crusoe's wanderlust persists. He thinks of returning to visit his island. The widow dissuades him. He takes custody of his 2 nephews, and then Crusoe marries and has 3 children of his own. But his wife passes away. He joins his nephew on a trip to the East Indies. He brings supplies to his island and finds the Spaniards did make it there. Alongside the English sailors and some of the natives, the colony has now grown, and it includes women and children. Crusoe proceeds to Brazil and sends more supplies to his island. These include cattle and some more wives for the men there. Crusoe tells the reader he's going to save the details of these new adventures for a later story. Now, in this final chapter, Robinson Crusoe reveals his priorities. He spends pages describing Friday's fight with a wild bear, the traveling party's encounter with a second pack of wolves, and he devotes even more pages to detailing the outcome of his fortunes in Brazil. Yet, his marriage and family are discussed in one short paragraph. He provides no information about his wife or children except to say that they exist, and then to mention that his wife died. Crusoe has developed a stronger sense of responsibility after his return from the island. Domestic pursuits hold little interest for him. He returns to England in 1687 and leaves again in 1694, so his children can't be very old, and it's unclear whether he leaves them behind or brings them with him on his voyage. The growth of the colony on the island delights Crusoe. He still regards it as his own property, in line with the colonial attitude that Europeans can own land in the New World in absentia. He also feels an obligation to take care of its inhabitants. Friday's fate is a mystery. He's last seen in the second encounter with wolves in France, but then Crusoe never mentions him again. There's no indication that he died, nor that he remained with Crusoe. The lack of information may indicate Crusoe's disregard for Friday as an equal. Robinson Crusoe ends feeling loose and unfinished. Defoe seems to feel he needs one more rousing adventure, and he sets it up for a later book.